Here we go, we're doing round two, and I'm going to add Stephanie and get her to join. See when she gets here. All right. So we are going to talk about Aziz and the Grace story today. And let's see if Stephanie's here. But it's not just going to be me. There we go.
I think I'm here now.
I can't hear you, though. Can you hear me?
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, no.
I still can't hear you.
I can hear you. Okay.
Are you muted?
Let's see. What's going on? Can you hear me now?
Oh, hang on. I know what it is. You're on my Bluetooth. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I can hear you. I can see you.
I know. I was like, what is it? And then I was like, this problem has happened before. I know what it is.
Okay, great.
Yay, here you are. So I'm really
Okay.
excited to talk to you about this. And I was excited that you posted. And I didn't know that this was the topic of your book. I don't know how I missed that. But I obviously need to
That's
read
okay. Let's introduce ourselves to everyone and tell everyone what's going on now that they've been so patient as to
Yes.
stick with us. So what you do is that you're a trial attorney, right?
Yes.
And so tell us about the focus of your practice.
So my name is Meredith Hawley, and I am a trial attorney, and I'm also a coach. So I shifted from my main focus being only helping people when they have a legal claim to trying to help women before they need to have a legal claim to resolve sexual harassment issues at work, and partly because often the law doesn't protect women. Like, unless you're kind of a low-level employee, there's not a lot of recourse in the law, but there are tools that can resolve it. So through my own experience with harassment and just helping other women, I developed a program. Now you tell us about you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. I am a survivor of sexual abuse, sexual assault. I don't know if I have suffered sexual harassment. Really, I can tell you about.
Those are forms of harassment. Oh, yes.
And so I wrote a book called The Art of Forgiveness, and it's about how I made that long journey of recovery from the sexual abuse, assault. You know, the whole, I think I've been through the whole continuum of like sexual disrespect,
Yeah.
you know, as a woman. And so many of us have this experience, whether, you know, from this end of it to that end of it. So I wrote that book. If anyone wants a copy of the book, write free book in the comments and I'll get one to you. Now, while the way I recovered is that I went very, very deeply into my spirituality. I learned very, very much about my intuition, my emotions, my psychology, and I ended up becoming a spiritualist minister. And similarly to you, I can help other women. Now, while I was recovering, I had to earn a living, right? So I spent 20 years in advertising in New York City. So now everything's kind of come together, and I actually coach other light workers on living their personal brand, uncovering their personal brand and living it in alignment with their highest values. Because in this day and age, as we can see with this Aziz Ansari thing, it's crucial to live your public life and your private life in alignment. We know everything about each other all the time. Anything can come out. So I was excited to have this conversation with you. We're coming at it from a lot of dimensions.
But I think that we kind of agree on that basic integrity principle. And I was even saying in what I was writing about it that I kind of feel like Aziz may be living true to his brand, you know, like he sort of brands himself as awkwardly aggressive, and like this went too far for sure, but it's in line with that like presumptuous, aggressive,
faux cute. I would agree with that.
Right.
Some people are like, oh, he calls himself a feminist. I think he can be a feminist.
Right.
He finds it as believing in equal rights. He can totally believe in equal rights and still come on too strong or
right,
still behave this way.
Yeah.
We're all flawed. So yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think people, Grace included, have certain thoughts, tell themselves certain stories, have certain expectations that aren't necessarily what the reality of the moment.
I think so too, but I also think that it makes sense. Like I was thinking about, we just don't see these articles about Taylor Swift and Beyonce. Like they are not putting people in physical danger. It's just there is a double standard, I think, out there, and partly we absorb that double standard and we start to agree with it, and I think that's where we can take a lot of power back. But it makes sense to, like, I get where you'd be coming from in Grace's position with a movie star, with, you know, like in somebody else's home.
I agree. She says here, I think I just felt really pressured. That to me just really pulsed out at me. I think I just felt really pressured. He wasn't holding her there. She was in a very safe neighborhood of New York City. I live in New York City. It is a very she, very safe. There is no way that she was in any danger outside. And it seems like he wasn't stopping her. He called her a car when she actually said she wanted to leave. Yeah. But she says, I think I just felt really pressured. And I know it wasn't just him that she felt pressured by. It's right. What you were just saying. It's this narrative that we've internalized about not making trouble, pleasing right. someone. And in a romantic situation, being taken care of by the prince. At that moment, she was sitting there with her back to him thinking, he's going to play with my hair, he's going to give me a massage. And he said, turn around, and pointed at his penis. Mm-hmm. And she says, it was literally the most unexpected thing. Really?
But it's
How is that unexpected?
Right. But it's unexpected because we have that narrative that you're talking yes. about. We have this expectation that is so far off from reality that, and then you can see in her story that she keeps coming back to her own expectation of what's going to yes. happen. Like at every step, even though she knows he's been a jerk the whole time, he's been way too aggressive the whole time, she's still like, okay, but now, this time, this time he's going to
Yes.
be what I expected in the first place.
Yes, yes. And I had that too. I had people say that to me. How can anyone be expected to know that he would keep pushing? Well, because he did from the beginning.
The
He
whole
rushed
time.
her out of the restaurant. So to take a moment, we all need to stay in our bodies, stay in the moment. You know, this is where the spirituality comes in. Like, what did he just do? You're telling yourself a story instead of being right there. And the same goes for him. He's telling himself a story. Oh, she's into it. Oh, she just wants a little chill out moment. No, be right there.
Yeah. And I think that one of the important things that I just want to bring up is that, to me, this is really different than victim blaming, because victim blaming to me says she's responsible for his inappropriate actions because she doesn't leave. And that's just never true. Like, no. He's still inappropriate if she leaves, if she stays. This is more about what we can do in every moment when we're experiencing something really inappropriate and even dangerous to protect ourselves, not to be in the other person's business about what they
right, and not to take responsibility for them.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, to me, it's the opposite of victim blaming, but I think a lot of times when we're in that narrative that life should be different than it is, that men should be respectful, that like if we changed who we are, if somehow we deserved respect, he would be respectful. That, yeah, go ahead.
No, that's right. That's right. I hadn't thought of it in exactly that way, but that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so, and how do you translate that for your clients?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you the same thing. But so what I do is I break everything down into a series of strategies. And so my program is a career defense program. It's like, how do we make sure that we're not doing exactly what you're talking about and sort of like ignore and expect somebody to change while we're ignoring it, and not be proactive in our careers to defend ourselves against this kind of thing and to make sure that we're focused on us. So what I do, I basically, a lot of what I do is thought management techniques, but obviously I have advanced in my career. I have experience of like the practical side of what you need to do to make more money, to advocate for yourself in your job, and to make sure that if you need to bring a lawsuit, you're in the best position possible. So there's the sort of like what you need to do side of that, but then the more important piece that people don't realize is the what you need to be thinking in order to put yourself in a place where you can do that. So what I see a lot, and part of the reason why I wrote my book and developed the program, is that I would have clients come to me and they would say, I reported it all the time, totally made it really clear. And then you'd read their emails and the email would be like, you know, I'm pretty sad at work and stressed out and things are really difficult. And so I maybe need a little more support than I'm getting, which is not reporting harassment, right?
No, that's fascinating.
But when we read it ourselves, we're like, well, clearly the reason I'm stressed out that everybody knows is this guy keeps giving me back rubs, like, or keeps calling me names, or keeps like criticizing my work when I tell him I won't date him, or whatever. Like, obviously that was the reason, but the report itself doesn't include it because we're embarrassed to talk about it. We think it's something to do with us. Like, we think we're going to be revealing, I don't deserve respect because this guy doesn't respect me. So
yeah, that's fascinating. Thought management, and that is what I do too. Because as I was alluding to earlier, it's this story that Grace was telling herself. Now, I mean, if she'd been in that situation without those thoughts, without telling herself it should be the fairy tale, she might have understood that she could leave, that it was okay to leave, or that it's okay to want to have sex with this guy on the first date. Okay, I mean, that's okay too.
whatever
because
you
she's telling
want.
her whatever you want, because she's also telling herself the story that I shouldn't want it. It's shameful. My lust is shameful. I don't know if she was experiencing lust. I could probably psychically connect, but I haven't.
Yeah.
But you know,
Boundaries.
I bet that he has had sex with enthusiastic women on the first date like that a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Grace's thoughts were preventing her from making herself happy either one way or the other. And that's always what happens to us as humans. We
And
are not our thoughts.
right. And it comes to me a lot of times back to what you said earlier about being present with ourselves instead of being out in a bunch of other people's opinions about what's going on. So,
Right.
like, if we're trying to get into this guy's mind about what he really wants and like why he's doing what he's doing,
And whether he'll respect us if we go too far or not enough.
and what am I going to tell my mom, or
right.
what am I going to tell my best friend,
right,
or,
yeah,
like what are they going to think? Then we can't be present with, like, you can't be, your brain can't be two places at once, so you've totally disadvantaged and disempowered yourself by checking out, kind of.
yeah, exactly. And so when I work with light workers, other psychic mediums, Reiki practitioners, or whoever it is, or also, interestingly enough, recently, female entrepreneurs who feel as though they're not really entitled to take the alpha position and market themselves,
Yeah.
experts, and for what they do. So when I work with clients, yeah, it's about going very, very deep and uncovering what makes you happy, the values you hold, what really are your primary personality traits.
Yeah.
And let's take those out into the world and express those in every moment and make your brand about that. A lot of light workers think, oh, marketing's icky. Oh, God. And yeah, it used to be. It used to be. Not for everyone, perhaps, but it doesn't have to be manipulative. It doesn't have to be dishonest.
It can be an integrity. It can be
Yes.
bringing out something that you're ready to create. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you find that similar with your female clients? They feel they don't feel confident or strong enough or know themselves enough to present themselves in a way that's.
Yeah, I find a lot that's a really good way to say it. I find a lot that what we do is we say, I just don't know what I'm good at. I just don't know. I'm sorry. Like, maybe I could do this job. That might be fun. But also this other thing sounds great too. And so we almost like that we're so involved in avoiding that story about what do we deserve? Do we deserve bad things? Are we going to fail? Are we going to die? Which makes so much sense. Like, it's so evolutionary, just what our brains do to try to protect us, right? But
Yeah.
But there's no movement forward. We're like constantly trying to survive and trying to just defend what we have already established. That, like, we're never, like, I think that the best way to defend our careers from harassment is to have like forward momentum of what we're creating and what our vision is and what we're meant to bring forward in the world. Because then you're not in a stagnant position just trying to survive. You're
Yeah. So that brings to mind, becoming the actor in your life as opposed to being acted upon. And that's what I see in my clients too. It's like, well, don't go out and just ask for a job. Don't go out just beg for something. Don't just look at what's presented, but act, as opposed to always allowing yourself to be acted upon. And again, look what happens between Grace and Aziz. I mean, it comes right down to these moments between men and women. She was allowing herself to be acted upon. Because
instead of creating the night that she wanted and saying, here's what we're going to do now. It's going to be awesome. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he probably would have been into it. I don't think that's, I think that's too big of a risk for women to take these days.
I mean, I think that I get like, I think that men tend to be in powerful positions like this. Like, they have an advantage socially because we all buy into these stories that, like, women deserve less, or like meant to be
Yeah.
moms, or whatever it is.
Taken care of, or we
Mm,
should marry up.
right, right. And like, don't be too powerful, people won't like you, stuff like that. But I do think that because men have that advantage, it they should be cautious about abusing it. I think that there is a responsibility. I think there's a lot women can do to take power back.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot men can do to use power responsibly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Use power responsibly, absolutely. And as now coming into my spiritualist minister hat, putting that hat on, we're all spirits in human form, so we're all inherently equal. So we've come down on earth, and you're in a position of power as this in this meat sack and that looks like a man. And part of your task here on earth, part of your lesson is learning how to handle that power responsibly. That's literally part of the reason you are on earth, if you're in a powerful position.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really important.
I think that when I look at, had a lot of people tell me, oh, these sexual harassment allegations are taking away men's careers. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, that's just not correct. The sexual harassment that people found out about that this man did is affecting his career. It's not the talking about it that's the problem. And I think that, like, what I appreciate, I think, the most about the Grace story is that we can't change these stories about ourselves until we are willing to tell them, until we're willing to say them out loud, until we're willing to own that this is what we're thinking about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I just have a lot of respect for that when people are willing to be open about what their experience is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think pretty much everyone finds that when they do take the risk, they do risk the discomfort of sharing. They find they're not alone. I mean, these experiences are the human condition.
Yeah.
So, and people have said she should have kept it in her journal.
Right.
She shouldn't have whatever published it. This is just a revenge. But no, that's her story.
Right.
That's what happened to her. Now, whether we agree, whether we would have had the same perspective is irrelevant. That's how she was feeling at the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And I think it's perfectly acceptable and actually to be encouraged for her to share.
I think so.
And I'd love to hear what was going through his head too, not to blame him and not to shame him. I'd love him to come on here and just say, well, yeah, at this moment I was thinking this.
Right.
And at that moment I was thinking that. And then we can say, really? Gosh, yeah, that's not my experience as a woman. Is that your experience as a man?
Right. Well, nobody likes that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the same with her, like, not to, like, blame her for having a negative story, because we all do, right? But to say, like, good for sharing it, and it is absolutely possible to change that and have a story about yourself that's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to say, that this might be the most way out thing I say. I know we've probably got an audience.
I love like way out things.
Very corporate, and then there's very way out. And I love it. This is coming together from these different perspectives.
Yeah.
But I want to thank Grace and Aziz for coming down to earth, going into these bodies, and doing this for us, like to teach us, to give us a parable, because I really think it's going to become something that we can all refer back to. Do you remember that? Do you remember the Grace and Aziz story? Instead of it just being in her journal or just being between her friends, we now have a common text, and it's a short text, and it's really has the potential to become this universal parable. I mean,
I was just thinking like a metaphor for the struggle between men and women, and how do you listen to yourself and also communicate what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. It can become a paradigm. Yeah, and you know, how would you do it differently? How would you do it the same? Is this what you're telling yourself, like her or like him?
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I might have done the same thing or felt the same way. I think I probably did. I think I probably would have.
Yeah.
But now, in my 40s, I would do things completely differently. As I said earlier, I might have stayed. I might have said, "Oh, great, you're gonna like service me first. That sounds awesome." Yeah. Or I might have said, "Oh, I'm not feeling it. I don't. This is not. I'm gonna leave. You know, maybe I'll text you later." I don't know. I'd have to be in the situation to feel if there was a spark.
Yeah, I have two thoughts about that. I was talking to my coach a while ago about how I kept going out to drinks with a friend who I was concerned was an alcoholic. So I would go out to drinks with her to help her not drink, like this crazy thing I was doing. But I was so afraid to say no to her because she really cared if people said no. She would get angry with you. It would be a whole conflict.
Oh, wow.
And so I would just say yes. I just said yes, anything she wanted to do. And I felt terrible because I knew I was lying to her. Like it was dishonest, but right. I was too afraid to say no. And I was talking to my coach and she said, okay, well, like if she asked you to do heroin, would you do heroin? And I was like, probably not. And then she was like, okay, what if she asked you to go murder kittens with her? Would that sound good to you? Would you do that? And I was like, okay, there's a line where I will say no. And she was like,
there's a line.
Right. So take that, like, why, like, take that and use that to create respect for your own opinions for what you want. Like, why is not going out to drinks one night less important than murdering kittens? Like just respecting your own preferences. And to me, it really made this solid, like, oh, now I know when to say, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And that's doing her a service.
Yeah.
That's doing her a service, because not that you would do it to patronize her, to mother her, but if she feels the reality of your distaste, you know, of your rejection, of your choice not to be in that energy, that can teach her something.
Right.
That will make her feel uncomfortable. It will make her feel something so that she can change her perspective
and look at whatever that is that's creating that for her.
Yeah.
The other thought that I had is, I don't know if you saw, there was a Huffington Post article that was saying, you know, Grace coming forward is ruining the Me Too movement. And
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a few. And one of the things that it said, though, that I really thought, like, I really took to heart was that Eliza Dushku, or I think you're supposed to say Dushku, came forward about being molested as a child this weekend. And there was very little talk about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Grace coming forward undermines anyone else telling their story. I think everyone should.
I agree. And it's very useful, especially as we said, it could be this universal reference.
Right, exactly. But I do think that there is a silent, like it's almost easier to talk about the Grace and Aziz story than it is to talk about something that we consider so evil.
Absolutely. It's much more uncomfortable. We can talk about, it was a bad day, you know, he's just he's just acting stupid. You know, he's a comedian. It's fun. He has a good show. We've all been there. Oh, it's just men. It's much easier to throw it off. But the Eliza Dushku experience is very confronting. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think it raises even the issues of like children working, like putting children in the workplace and how vulnerable they are in the workplace when we're letting these child actors do this. And then obviously just the silence around what happens to children, like that she's an adult now. And there's so many people saying, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I went through, you know, abuse as a child, and that is some of that is in the book. The book is meant to help others, so it's not a lot about me wrestling with it. But yeah, people get very uncomfortable when I mention it. You know, people gotta go silent, you know. But it's simply the continuation, you know. It's just the worst on the continuum of disrespect.
Right. It's the same. It's just
deeper,
like a more vulnerable person, like bigger injury.
Like, yes.
But
because at that point in your life, it will twist, it will pervert your entire life. It did mine.
And your body and your relationship to other people. Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. Everything, my ambitions, my belief in myself, my belief in others. I mean, I ran away from Australia and came to New York City to get away from it, to run away from it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's an entire world away. It's wonderful. I'm completely glad I did it, but running away has a very different kind of feel to it, has different consequences than acting. Again, that was a reaction as opposed to me having control of myself and understanding what was going on and then taking an action.
And then developing that relationship with yourself that's good, that you would have wanted to have with adults as a child, which is hard work, I think. I mean, I think what I see a lot of times, and I think this is true of Grace too, is our thoughts about ourselves are often so much worse than anything that's happening around us. And our thoughts about what harassment means about us, what abuse means about us, is so much more painful than any physical pain that we can have.
Yes. And I think it's about the harasser, the abuser. And we're talking about men and women here. Okay, we all know what happens in all forms, but it's about the shame being projected onto the object of the harassment. And I say object because that's what we are. That's what she is at that time in that transaction.
Right.
And we internalize that. And we tell ourselves this must be true.
Right. And we wouldn't tell anyone else that, right? Like, it's something that we would never say to another person. If our best friend, like if I went to Grace and said, hey, this happened, should I have stayed? She wouldn't have been like, yeah, it might have gotten better. What would people think about you? Or tell, you know, like any of those stories that we tell ourselves, if our friend came to us and said them, we would be like, that's not true.
So if I am working with someone, well, you know, most of us actually, most women do carry this shame that has been projected onto us. We really need to transmute that. We really need to let that go through our physical system and our spiritual system, in order to be free of that. How do you deal with shame? I mean, women who've been harassed must come in with that. Do you address it or do you not? I mean, interesting.
Right. So I don't directly ask them if that's what they're experiencing, because
Right.
like, to me, I don't like it when people tell me my feelings. I'm like, that's not true.
And they haven't come to you for their feelings.
Right. And
Well,
so
not directly.
not directly. And usually the feelings part is the hardest part, especially
Yeah.
when I see women who are very fresh from a like physically violating experience. You're in such a survival mode, and your brain thinks that all those negative stories you have about yourself are what are keeping you alive. So you hold really tightly to those stories at first. And so, like, you have to have a motivation to get through that. You have to have some kind of reason, like a possibility of feeling better, like a possibility that you could do something great with your life. Like, even a possibility that, like, usually the way it starts out is a possibility that you could do something to enforce a consequence against the person who did this to you.
Yes, that is it. That is like getting them back, getting justice.
Mm-hmm. Which still keeps you over in their business, right? It still keeps you tied to them, but it's a place to start. Like, it's a motivator. And so if I can explain to people, like I want you, like, you feeling good, you feeling powerful is the best way to make that happen. Sometimes that will get to them, but the way that I work with people is basically like, identifying their story about themselves and how does that story feel, and then you do have to sort of stop, at some point, get comfortable with those feelings and let them have a little space, and even to the point of being like, it makes sense that I feel this way, and I'm not going to feel this way for forever. Like, I don't have to, but I can let the feeling take up space in my body, and I'm still going to survive. Like you're talking about with shame, I think. Like, you have to.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to sit still and hurt sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's how we evolve. I've got so much to say. There's so much coming into my head. So yeah, if I'm working with someone on forgiveness, yeah, that is a great place to start.
I'm curious about that, because to me, what I see when people come to me is they just want to feel safe. They want to feel secure. They think that they'll feel safe if this guy has some kind of, goes to jail for forever, is gone. Yeah. If they can think about him being
gone. Similar,
then you can feel safe. So do you see people at a little later place where they're like ready to think about forgiving, or do they usually understand that forgiving is going to let him leave their life?
It's gosh, yeah, if they're really ready to work, then they're at the later stage.
Yeah.
But you know, in content that I make, you know, in things that I write, you've got to start with that anger.
Yeah.
Vengeance. And I can't go out and say, hey, I got something to sell you. It's forgiveness. It's great.
Come right. On. I was thinking that. I was like,
not gonna work. Even though I would love to.
Right. Just to set the person free. Like, forgiveness to me is nothing about the person who did something to you. Like,
that's right.
It's
not about letting them off the hook.
No.
But yeah, at the very beginning, no one wants to hear that. It's not about them. It's got to be about them. They did it to me.
Yeah.
They didn't really.
They broke me.
You think about it.
Life. Yeah.
But you can't do that from the beginning. You just cannot be told that. I mean, that's what people were telling me. That's what every spiritual teacher says. Oh, yeah. It's for you. Oh, it's for you. You know.
You're like, screw that.
This wouldn't have happened to me if not for him. And right. That is true in a very, very shallow way. But you can't say that either. You know, and I've heard some, you know, spiritual teachers will say, pray for the person, wish them well, pray for that they get everything they want. Like, no, that's too difficult. It's so
fake when you try to, because I've tried to do those things before when I don't believe it. And it just creates all this judgment about yourself that not only am I so terrible that this thing happened to me, but also I can't do this thing that everybody says is going to fix it.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
It does not happen here. You can't just let it go.
No.
You have to start from somewhere, and that somewhere is rage, anger, confusion, shame, and sit with that. Just be that. That's where you are. Just be where you are for a second.
Yeah. And anger, to me, I think anger is a wonderful feeling. Like, it is so crystallizing and clarifying. It like doesn't feel good, but it makes you be like, this is how I'm going to move forward. This does not happen to me.
Yeah, there's adrenaline in it. Yeah, there's an invigoration, enlivening. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely survival. That's where you're in, the spot you're in to begin with.
Yeah.
And eventually
you can get stuck in it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. We can't get stuck in it. We have to let that transmute. We have to let that go. We have to figure out ways of actually being a bit of an alchemist, I guess.
Right. But also I think that is part of moving forward and that taking an active role in what you're going to create.
Yeah. If you actually take action, things will shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, so you work with women through these issues and through forgiveness, and then you also do the branding for other light workers who are helping people. Is that cool?
Yeah, I know, it's funny, right? Yeah, because this is such deep work. Like I said, it's not like I can hang my shingle out and say, come on and get some forgiveness. It's just who I am. It's how I reached happiness. It's my North Star. You know, even every day at home, I can forgive my kid every second, and we can have a really wonderful, loving relationship. If in minute to minute, moment to moment, I forgive, I really think it's the key to happiness. It dissolves everything. So I practice it. That's my spiritual practice. My business, my day-to-day business, is uncovering for other talented light workers their personal brand. And you know, it's an open secret. Forgiveness is part of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to dissolve the past resentments. You know, you have to dissolve your fears, and you can do all of that through forgiveness. Now, I don't say, hey, come and learn branding through forgiveness. But it's just who I am. And that comes through.
Which that's a really interesting thing, because is that partly what you see of the disconnect between light workers and being willing to put themselves out in the world? Is
yes, exactly,
like protection around that. I'm not selling out. Yeah,
exactly. It's all about connecting the human with the spirit. I mean, we live in this human world, and light workers. I get a lot of hate mail, you know, about you shouldn't be charging for this. These gifts are supposed to be freely given. No, energy is money. We exchange money. That's how we live in the human world. We're spirits living in a human world. So let's figure out what we're supposed to be doing. Let's live here in alignment with our highest values, but we're not going to be removing ourselves from the world.
Which is also, I mean, such a brilliant place to start with people about all their judgments about money, right? And like really that resistance to money is its own ego thing, its own protection, its own like.
That's true. It's I'm not going to charge. I'm holier than thou.
And something dangerous is going to happen if I touch money or.
Yeah. When of course you just need to be this vessel for money. You can bring it in and then you can send it out and give it to whoever you want. You don't have to keep it.
Right.
There are many spiritual teachers who make a lot of money and they don't keep any of it.
Right.
They're very, very happy. It flows through them. They're stewards of the money. So let's do that. You know, let's do that. Let's not live in poverty, or let's not pretend we didn't come here on earth to learn this stuff. You know?
And I think that there's something empowering to clients about investing in themselves.
Yeah.
There's something where where we're forcing them to take that moment and say, I'm worth this. What I'm going to create in the world is worth this investment. And I think that that's kind of powerful.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're putting that energy into yourself. You're putting that into your place. You're creating space for yourself, so that you're being the actor in your life.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of money. It's not really real. So
Right.
there's plenty
So
of
why
it.
make a big deal out of
Keep
it?
it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep it
It's a
moving.
good lesson for me because I have my own money things that I was writing about this morning. I was like, this is so boring. The struggle that I'm having with money is so boring.
Yeah. It's so common again, isn't it? Right, like love or money. When I do psychic reads for people, I don't do it anymore, but I used to for a little while. Say, all right, is it love or money?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, oh, sorry. It's because I became sort of a bit blasé because I saw it every day. It was either, does he like me? Should I have sex with him? Or am I going to get the job? Or is my inheritance coming? Or can I afford this to go on this vacation? It was always love or money, even if the person didn't see it.
Which again, it's like a symbol of whatever things mean about us, right? Like we just attach to the symbol of, it's the same with the Grace and Aziz story. Like what happened there, that metaphor for what happens with all of us brought up both of their stuff.
Love and money. Love and money was right there in the room with them.
Yeah.
I mean, he was probably this awkward, aggressive guy that didn't get dates. Now he's got money. Now he's getting dates all over the place.
Right.
So that changes the dynamic between him and women. That changes love for him.
Right.
She wants love in a certain way, in a certain fairy tale. She wants him to love her, really. She wanted a date after date after date and be seduced. She wanted that love.
Which she would translate to her being like deserving love and deserving respect. And
right.
Yeah.
But there's no reason we can't love and respect each other, even if we just met and we're having sex right now. I tell you, that is the best.
Right?
If you can love in that moment for that night with that passion, that's it. It's in the moment. And then tomorrow's tomorrow. Maybe you want to do it again.
You still have your story about yourself, like whatever. Yeah. You still go forward with what that is. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Love and money.
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been really fun. So if people want to work with you, if people want a free copy of your book, then they should type free book in the comments. If they want a free copy of my book, they can type career book in the comments. If people want to work with you, where can they email you?
Well, we're on Facebook right now, so just PM me. Just contact me just right there through Facebook, and we'll start dialogue. It's the easiest way.
I think sometimes you can't do that if you're not friends with the person, so they can just friend you. And then
they can, and my profile is public. Okay. So they can friend me, they can comment, they can go to my page, which is Reverend Wild, or they can go to reverendwild.com. That's easy to remember, reverendwild.com.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear from people. I love these conversations, these great conversations.
And do you do like a consultation with people if they want to know more about how to work with you?
Yep. We set up a call, and we talk about where they are and where they want to go. We talk about their personal brand, their personal values. And what do they need? Do they need some psychic readings? Or do they want to build a brand for their business? Or do they want to build a personal brand in their career where they are right now and move forward? So, so set up a call and find out. And what about you?
And that's true for me too. So they can email me Meredith, MEREDITH, it's hard to spell, at freedomresourcecenter.com. So it's MEREDITH at freedomresourcecenter.com, or obviously they can comment on this video or however is convenient, but I do basically the same. I sort of do a strategy session with them about what they're like. is their career fully defended against harassment? Are they moving forward? Are they creating what they want to create in the world, and what's that look like to them? And yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's touch. This was great. I think we will see what happens next in pop culture, in love and money.
I know, there's always something.
Men and women, and we'll get together again. It was great.
I know. Soon. All right. This was great. Thank you. Bye.